And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Jeff Schmidt, who during his near-death experience had a meeting with people on the other side. Jeff, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Something happened to me late 70s when I was just a teenager. 17 years old. I've been holding a lot of this in for my lifetime. I had moved from, in Wisconsin, I had moved from a small town, last of 6 children, and moved to a big city with my parents. Everyone else got married off. I was still in high school. And I moved, suddenly I had no siblings around me and lost all my friends. And it really affected me quite in a very unusual way. I was one day I woke up and I almost want to say I felt possessed. I had no control over my life, but I was also very, very nervous. It was the day where I believe I was supposed to die, and I had so much nerves. I had to get out and go for a drive, and for some reason I took my father's car, which had a real big engine in it, and I wasn't used to that. And I went for a ride, and I was heading back, and I just felt out of control somehow. And I was heading home on this little stretch of highway, and for some reason I was so irresponsible. I pushed the throttle down, and with a 400 cubic inch engine, that thing really took off, and I wasn't used to that. And I was coming up on this little stretch of highway, and there was 2 or 3 cars on the right side. I was in the left lane. There was 2 lanes each way. And I just wanted to see what it was like. And I let go of the gas, but I still was exceeding the speed limit considerably. And as I was approaching these 3 cars in the left lane, one of them didn't see me, the guy in the back, and he pulled over into my lane. And it was dark out, and he just didn't see me because I was probably flying almost, very high speed. And when I was maybe 10 to 20 feet from him, he pulled out in front, and suddenly time stopped. I left my body. I went up somewhere. It was dark. I couldn't see anything, but I could sense things. I went up. There was no sense of, oh, I'm going to die. There was no panic, but there was also no sense of time. And I met this group of people who I'm assuming is my ancestors in a round table. I could tell there was a round table there, and there was a bunch of people looking at me, and they wanted to discuss my next move. And everything was calm. Normally, when you're about to have this big, huge accident, you freak out. I know I would now. But we had this conversation back and forth for, I don't know, obviously there was no time. I would assume 5 minutes. I guess if you can, when you're in those spiritual realms and the time is not there, it's hard to judge. But based on the conversation, a few minutes at least. And I never had this fear like, oh, I'm going to die. And it seemed so natural to me where I was there and making this discussion. I looked down, or I never looked down, but it was dark. I couldn't see anything. But we had this conversation, and I told them, I kind of reported to them and said, I was very foolish in going so fast, so quickly. And it was a car I wasn't used to driving. And here I am, 17. And the only thought that came to my mind was, I don't want to, whoever this person was, I don't want to hit this person, kill this person. I didn't care if I died because, it was my own fault. So we discussed what we could do. And there were oncoming cars it was a grass boulevard and oncoming cars on the other side. So I thought, or we talked about, if I cut over there, what's going to happen? And I knew that at a high rate of speed, I couldn't have stopped on the grass peacefully. That would have been the best alternative, just cut off and stop and slow down or get back on the road. But it would have been too hard to control. And I easily could have lost control and had a head on over on the left side. And I knew that at my rate of speed and this other person's was so much slower that a collision would have been either fatal for both of us or myself or just him, I don't know. And I just kept expressing to this group that I didn't want to kill anybody. So I don't know if it was myself or it was sort of, I had talked to several, but there was one kind of a spokesperson up here in this roundtable and kind of, agreed or disagreed with me. I don't know if it was his idea, but we discussed it. And I said, well, there's a chance that if I go back down there and immediately cut to the right, there's a chance I could miss him and land in this big grass field and prevent everything. And everyone seemed to agree. It was unanimous. Okay, let's try to do that. So I said, all I remember is these words, okay, I'm ready. And boom, I was back there and my hands were ready like this to quickly cut to the right. And I was able to miss everybody and shoot off the road. It was, the field was a little bit below the level I was at on the road. So there was a period there where I went off the road and was kind of in midair. And of course, after I made that turn, I had no control over the vehicle, obviously. But it felt like there was this kind of guidance that I was able to land the car kind of like an airplane, even though it was sideways because I went off at such an angle. But there had been rain shortly before, and the grass was wet. And so I land sideways on the grass, and I just started sliding. And I really felt like if this grass would have been dry, I think the tires might have caught and probably flipped me over and over and over. And if that's the way I died, that was okay. I just wanted to avoid hurting anybody else. And that's what happened. I slid for, several hundred feet sideways, and the car finally stopped and it was turned off. I turned the key and it started. I looked down at the road and there's cars stopped on the highway watching me, I'm sure. And I didn't know what to do. What do you do? And the car started and I thought, well, I didn't hurt anybody and there really wasn't any property damage other than some grass dug up. So I put it in gear and drove home. And didn't know what to do then. I went in and this was my dad's car. Went in, he wasn't asleep, but he was in bed. He didn't want to get up. I told him, hey, I messed up. I made a mistake. I didn't have an accident, but I bent the car, the frame. And he said, okay, we'll look tomorrow. And he left early. I don't remember what happened, but the next night my parents went out and they saw where I went off the road because there were marks and the the grooves in the field. And there wasn't much they could say. They couldn't be angry. I could tell they were just happy I was alive and I didn't hurt anybody. So they were kind of speechless. I remember, I don't know if it was my mom or I think it was my mom that said, oh, we saw your tracks. And that's all they could say.
During your conversation, did you talk about anything else besides avoiding the accident?
Not that I remember. And I don't remember how many of them I talked to, but I just remember numerous beings there. And one was the spokesman. And angels, I felt like they were relatives. It felt like they were watching me. A lot of people say they have spiritual guides and angels watching over them, and I believe in all that. But this felt like they were relatives. I have German heritage. I don't remember a German accent, but what I hear is in the spiritual realms, someone can be speaking in one language and in their native language, and someone else can, but they can understand each other perfectly because it's a heart, a spiritual thing, not a physical words thing. They felt like they were my relatives, though, and it just felt like this was, to this day, I felt like this was the day I was supposed to die. But there was some kind of intervention. Um, did I deserve it? I doubt it. I don't think so. But there was an intervention, so there must be something bigger, greater that's coming, maybe. But all we, but the sense was calm. There wasn't a panic, and it wasn't emotional. It wasn't like, oh my God, what am I going to do? It was just matter of fact, like we're talking here, maybe we should do this. I don't want to do this. I think that's too dangerous. Let's go over here. And that's what's so amazing. There wasn't, emotions were out of it. It was just a thought process.
After this accident, how did you change as a person?
Somehow after that, I had this special grace. I felt like, I think people are endowed with physical senses and spiritual senses, but so many times our spiritual senses are dulled. But after that, and again, I don't know what I did to deserve it, but after that, I felt like my spiritual senses were awakened. Even to this day, similar things happen, but not quite so dramatic sometimes. But I'm sort of used to it now. But yeah, I definitely changed. What happened was shortly after that, emotions got very heightened. I could experience things, and even though there was no in emotion in that moment, but afterwards there was so much, and everything was heightened. And I spent time. I spent time in a big park, a nature center nearby, because I had that whole summer. I had my parents working. I had no friends. I was just alone, and the loneliness really got to me, and so severely, that I seeked solace in the creation because it was untouched pretty much. So there was this beautiful nature center, and I just felt like the creation really responded to me after that. And I started walking there and spending hours most of the day at this place. Somehow I wasn't afraid to drive over there again, but I did take my bike too. To this day, I drive a lot, but I'm always afraid of hurting somebody. And I spend time at this nature center, and as I was walking, things of creation like the wild flowers responded to me. I would hear their voice in a high pitch. They would say, "Touch me," or "See me." And plants and trees also kind of responded to me differently. I could hear trees with a lower voice. They almost had lower voices, like hug me or climb me. And it just seemed like my senses were heightened, or my spiritual senses were opened. And but what happened was the loneliness took over. And so like the universe was there kind of embracing me. So I kind of went through this for about a year. I went through this experience where I either saw myself I saw my own nature. I was like shown either my future or who I really was. And for this was an entire year. What happened was because the loneliness overtook me, I was seeking solace from heaven, and kind of woe is me, you know, I'm so lonely. But what happened was I felt like the creator just responded to me, and I was shocked. I was so shocked that I could hear these voices, and we always hear about people hearing voices, but this was so peaceful and loving. But the sense was then we had a common base. Basically, the creator told me that he was also very lonely. And when I heard that, when I sensed that, I was just shocked because we often think of God or the creator up in his throne somewhere, unrelated to humankind, all powerful, and I found it really wasn't like that. And he sort of felt like God really confided in me that um, he was lonely as well. So what happened was I started to try to kind of develop that in myself, and I kind of was in this divine realm for weeks. And like I said, the creation, the flowers were responding. Everything responded to me. It was like I had all this, let's say, spiritual attention. Everything was on me. What was I going to do? What was I going to do next? And I was shown kind of, I, I was, I wasn't delusional enough that I felt like I was like the original Adam in the Garden of Eden, but I was treated that way in some ways. Like I wasn't naming animals and things like that, but I was treated like that. Like I was just the heavenly realm and myself with the angels, and that was it. And the creation for weeks, and it was amazing. But what started to happen was I could reach these like high realms of the spiritual realms during the day, but I had this incredible spiritual battle starting, and I could reach some high level during the day and have all these incredible things, but I had no one to share them with, and I couldn't really tell anybody. It would have been pretty far fetched of a story. But um, at night there was like waves of evil spirits hitting me, coming at me, trying to destroy me and kill me. So nighttime was scary because I could really find so much divine feelings and sense of myself in the day, but at night when the sun was down, laying in bed, there were just waves of spirits, evil spirits, trying to destroy me that I had to try to fight off. I know it sounds bizarre, but it kind of showed me that this was a real war. And I think probably we all go through that, but we're not aware of it, maybe. And I could just feel it. The thing about at night with these waves of evil spirits, it was it was scary and it was dangerous, and they definitely wanted to kill me. But it also motivated me to get out of that realm the next day. So I would always go back to this nature center and try to experience something similar as the day before or even more. So I kind of went higher again, and the higher I went, the harder it was at night. And I had like a good spiritual realm during the day and evil one at night. And when I say good spiritual realm, I kind of feel like God, the creator, and all the good people in the spirit world and the good angels. But at night, it was totally opposite. But it did motivate me enough because it really felt life or death. It motivated me to continue to strive for the good and try to win this war and not just be a spiritual statistic. Um, and then what happened? The second part of my life that I saw was after a few weeks of this, I was either going crazy or I didn't know how I was going to survive all this because it was quite the nervous situation. But let's say 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know, time seemed to have no meaning at that time. All this good fortune and heavenly divine realms that I was experiencing just went away, just like that. And it just felt like everything was gone, everything was empty, and it was just the grass and the plants once again. Everything else was gone for a few days. And during that time, I was really shown my kind of rebellious fallen nature. Like I was thinking everything is divine. I am a divine being. And then all of a sudden the reality came and I was a rebellious because it just disappeared. And I had no idea what did I do? Where did it go? And so that time my thoughts were more of complaint and that all that gratitude that I was feeling, it just went away. It was more of a complaint and a rebellious nature. And then you start thinking, was all this real or am I dreaming? And and then I'm thinking 3 or 4 days of that gone, and I made all this effort to get over there, and it was empty. It was like there was no more spiritual realm. There was no divine intervention. And 3 or 4 days later, all of a sudden it came back, and I felt like, where did you go? I guess for one thing, but also I felt the response from heaven was when I showed you your fallen nature, your rebelliousness came out. I was really hurt, and I felt like God, the Creator. I hurt the Creator by my rebelliousness, and it really hurt me because I really felt like I hurt. I damaged. I did wrong. I felt sinful, and I felt ashamed. But I felt so clearly that God Himself was hurt by my own thoughts and actions of this rebelliousness, and it was so real, and it kind of it like wrote itself into my spiritual being, into my heart, that I felt so sad that I disappointed such a loving God, and it's sort of the reflection of what happened to humankind starting from the beginning. So I had this experience, and it was as real to me as, and the good times was like I almost want to say a skin touch relationship with the Creator. But when He disappeared, it was just evil. It was just surrounded by evil. How did I win this war? I don't know. I don't think I could have continued. I felt like I was going to die one way or another. But I had this understanding, and who do you go to? I can't go to my pastor. And there was nobody that could relate on this level. I had to handle it by myself. But I I felt so bad that I just felt like, God created humans as substantial beings in reflection of his character. And the whole creation is like God's character and image, but we are meant to be the children. We are like the mediators between heaven and earth, center of the cosmos. And if you hurt the being that loves you, I was just so motivated to turn that around and try to find a way to live a good life and comfort that heart that I was feeling. And so that's kind of what I made my life's goal as. So it as bizarre as it is, I just feel like I I discovered, or somehow, this point that theologians and religious leaders have kind of glossed over. I mean, there's a I'm not trying to be um biblical or anything, but Genesis 6:6 says that God regretted making man after the fall. And we don't focus on that. So the reality is, God is our parent and we are his children. So when we suffer, God as a parent suffers even more, like 8 billion times. What are there? 8 billion people in the world right now. 8 billion times he suffers when we suffer. And he gave mankind a portion of responsibility. He asked us to be perfect. So he could intervene. There's so many people that say, I can't believe in a God that would allow the suffering of this world. And you can't really blame them, right? But he gave human beings a portion of responsibility. And if he was to intervene and stop everything, all the bad things that would happen on earth, then that blessing, or that portion of responsibility that we are created, the original blueprint that he had for mankind, would be lost. And so he can't, in some ways, he can't just intervene in human portion of responsibility, because we are meant to be the the substantial representative of God. And if he was to intervene, then we would lose. And then the evil that was created in the beginning of history would be giving credit to the evil. And so then it would make evil part of God's creation, and that can't happen. So in some ways, he's waiting for us. So there's ignorance that started at the beginning, and then he's been working throughout history to overcome that ignorance. And if you think about it, and we often hear that the last days are now, and you can see it. There's internal ignorance and external ignorance. And if you think about it, the last 100 years, how much has mankind changed from science? Technology is amazing. So somehow God is working for the last days now and changing we are overcoming our external ignorance through science. But God is also working through our internal, to help us to overcome our internal ignorance. And if we can understand the true meaning of why we're here, we wouldn't feel the way we do, or have the attitudes that we have towards heaven, or believing in God. And there's a lot more to just believing in God. But if we can understand that God has got the same feelings that we have, that multiplied by 8 billion, he's sort of in a position to be pitied, because we are causing him pain when we cause others pain. So I think it's an amazing time to be alive. And I think God is helping us to overcome our internal ignorance right now. And sort of behind the scenes. There's a lot more, because if we look at this world right now with the war in the Middle East and in Europe, but so many things, it looks almost hopeless. But I set my entire life to try to find a way to comfort this creator, and I finally am feeling like there's a way, if enough people can do it, we can fulfill that original blueprint, and we can embrace that divine nature that we have. We can erase that and get rid of that fallen nature that we have. Enough of us can do that. God can feel comfort and be liberated. So I feel like that's how it's all happening right now, this last 100 years. So I've been seeking internal knowledge in my life more than anything else. So after that experience at 17, it was difficult going to school. I gave up on that kind of education and tried to follow this path. But maybe it was really, I was showing that, in the future, you can have this great divine connection with all the things of creation, or you can follow that fallen way. So somehow I was able to overcome those waves of evil spirits, mostly by trying to discipline my body. All things are in subject and object relationships, but most of the time our mind is supposed to be subject and our body an object, but most of the time we follow the flesh way. And so it sort of destroys our own spirit by not following our mind and following our body. So by being able to try to find a way to unite that mind and body that's centered on the goodness, I was able to overcome those waves of evil spirits and wasn't defeated, if that makes sense.
Now, you held on to this experience for many years with not sharing it with the public. What made you decide to start sharing it?
Well, I feel like the timing's right. People like you are more open-minded. If I would have said this in 1978 to something, I would have probably been locked up. And also just feel like the providence that God has worked through in the last 6,000 biblical years is kind of coming to an end, and now is the time that people should know. It's not that we need a relationship with God centered on suffering, but we need to be able to know how to respond. And when we have a clearer understanding, you don't feel it's not just a concept, or it's not just superficial. It's something that you can experience and shed tears. When I felt like I really hurt heaven, I shed hours and hours and hours of tears, day after day. And like I said, I felt like it was written on my spiritual body, and I had to try to follow that. So that's what I dedicated my life to do. And to a certain extent, successful. But there's people that are much greater than me that deserve a lot more credit too, I feel.
Now, you felt
Collectively.
off that day when you had the accident. Are you saying that you think you were supposed to have this experience, or you had the accident because you felt off?
Because there was no panic and no emotion. It just felt like it was supposed to happen like that. But it didn't end there. That's the thing. That was more of a beginning. So I feel like, yes, I'm on borrowed time, and I feel like, I have to really make something historical for humanity and connect to other people who are like-minded. to, change history into the better instead of the worse, because I saw so clearly how great things can be and how horrible things can be. And I feel like maybe I'm representing mankind. Everybody has that choice. Everybody has that option to really embrace divinity and try, because once if you enter those realms, let's say when you, like, I'll do things like, well, I had a celibate life then for many years. I'm married now for over 40 and have children. But celibacy and fasting, some of those disciplines that I used really kind of put me in a higher realm when I could subjugate my body, strengthen my mind and subjugate my body. There's so much more different energies and realms out there that you're unaware of unless you can really put that relationship, that subject-object relationship, proper. When your body is dominating you, you're just dull. Those spiritual senses are dull. But if you can dominate your body with your mind, strengthen your mind, there's like unlimited energy out there and unlimited experiences and unlimited realms that we're unaware of, but people are experiencing now and talking about, and they're real. And when somebody says that they had this experience, if it's their experience, who am I to say, oh, they're making that up? But I had that experience and it was so real to me even 46 years ago. I wish I could even tell you even more details about all these things, but it set my path. And I felt like I owe heaven something, that I have to maintain this fight. And of course, who knows how long I'm going to live, but it's just great to kind of get it out there and off my chest. I feel liberated to be able to share it. And it makes perfect sense to me. I don't know if I shared it exactly perfectly, but there's a lot more.
Has the memory of the experience faded over time?
No, in fact, I don't think so, but I really didn't think about it over all these years. But I think that must have been the starting point of this experience. And that, and just the heightened emotions of loneliness. And like I said, just to have the universe respond to me shocked me. But just to think that there's a being out there that we are causing, like we put our creator, we kind of put him in a prison almost, or stabbed him in the back early on. And he regretted making mankind, but he's never given up on mankind. And now I just feel like that's going to be paying off, that we can all find that divinity within ourselves and make that relationship based on a clearer understanding, not just a concept. Or, I mean, as important as faith may be, but blind faith isn't really going to bring about perfection. The saying is, ignorance will never bring perfection or oneness. But there's a chance now, an opportunity now for mankind to really overcome. We're already doing that scientifically, the external ignorance, but the internal ignorance needs to be taken care of too. And if we can do that, then the whole concept and the give and take between the creator and mankind can become clear and real, and not just some concept or some random experience, but it can be last my life and beyond.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Oh, sure. Email maybe.
Do you want to share your email address?
Sure. I think the easiest one, I have several. My name, Jeff Schmidt, SCHMIDT, 1961 at gmail.com. Jeff Schmidt 1961 at Gmail. I'll answer any reasonable ones. Why the glossing over the sadness of the Creator at the beginning. A lot of people have lost faith, but they still are spiritual people and seeking truth, spiritual truth, but they can't trust established religions because they know that. Well, I see the Bible as a textbook teaching the truth, but not the truth itself, because it has been translated and altered and changed by humans. And a lot of people know that and lack trust in established religions because of it. And I can understand. But why the fact that God regretted making mankind and trying to solve that, restore that relationship was glossed over. I have no idea where it came from. But to me, that was the big thing, because that's how heaven contacted me. And we had that common base of that loneliness. And I realized how much, when heaven kind of disappeared for a few days, how I changed. And I could see my evil nature that I inherited from the beginning and been handed down throughout history. But now I can see that, be clear on that, and work to restore all that back to the original blueprint that the Creator wanted from the start. So I understand maybe a lot of Christians may not really be happy hearing this, but if they really think about it and pray about it, and it's right there in the Bible, Genesis 6:6. Why we forgot about it, I don't know. I think we were just blaming others and envious and lacking taking any responsibility personally. And it just kind of disappeared, and no one even thinks about it or talks about it. Of course, Heavenly Parent is like our parent, and everything was created in both masculine and feminine, all the creation, including all the way down to protons and electrons. So I also feel like God is our Father, but God also possesses feminine aspects. So it's like parents. Sometimes we feel strongly disciplined. Well, it's kind of like a Heavenly Father, but we also feel embraced and loved. But Christians commonly follow the Holy Spirit is really like God's feminine aspect too. And I feel like we need to be married to be able to be a complete person, because when we have that harmonious relationship of male or masculine and feminine, then that's truly the expression of, or the image of God and God's ideal. And so, yeah, I'm very pro-family when it comes to that. And there's so much more that's happening and behind the scenes. But yeah, I would be happy to answer any questions, but be nice. I'm a sensitive guy too.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Yeah, I felt like I guess my experience wasn't just for me. That all the people, even those who don't even believe that God exists, if they understand God more clearly and not just superficially, that God is a caring parent who's only looking out for his children, and with the proper understanding of how God created mankind through certain principles, we can develop a relationship. Because as shocked as I was that I had a response of my loneliness, I was more shocked to find out that my little being, teenager, could cause pain for heaven. And, if you can feel that deep inside, not just intellectually, but that relationship can grow and develop with that understanding. But it doesn't end there, because it needs to go beyond. But I was able to find I was able to find like-minded people in a movement that really is working to try to bring all this back out, that I can get into maybe next time. But um, I I just feel like, I hate to say it, but if I can do it, anybody can. Kind of. So we have all things were created with dual purposes. We have our individual purpose of our life, and then we have a purpose for the whole, contributing to society. And I felt like if we could, at each crossroad, we could follow the unselfish way and go to help others and serve others, we can find happiness in our own life. And if we come to that decision and we follow the selfish way, well, then it's only going to pull us down and make us unhappy. But when we live for others is when we can find true happiness in our life. And finding that balance between the two is really the challenge. It's sort of like work. You can work and make a lot of money for your company and spend all your time, but your kids are home and they don't even know their parents. But if you can find that balance of making that money and providing for your company and having a relationship and a great family, that's where happiness comes. So always choosing the whole when it comes to more universal, not selfish corporation stuff, profits. Choosing the unselfish way and serving and living for others is where you can find that happiness. And then when the whole is taken care of, the individual is too, because the individual purpose is included in the whole. That makes sense. So I found that happiness dwells there. And I also feel like now is the time when we can clearly understand so many of these things. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Jeff, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. This was great. I'm looking forward to, I've already subscribed and I've been watching some of yours, and thank you for your integrity and your genuineness in interviewing me.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.